Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm a little later than usual. I was trying to share my view from my window, but somehow didn't get the right way to share the picture. So next time. So here we are, Friday. Nice to see you checking in. New names. A lot of us. A lot of us. Thank you for this week. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your practice. Thank you, James, for being here with us and supporting us through the whole week in a very grounding way, I feel. Yeah. And yeah, just warm welcome to you all. Special warm welcome if you're here for the first time. Um, and welcome to all of those who will be watching the replays. Okay, so we'll be here for the next hour. Have our last session with James, flowing with James. And at the end, you can ask your questions. If you type the questions in the streaming chat box, please type question capital letters so we know it's a question. And of course, all your comments are welcome. And really appreciate them. If you want to come on screen, then you have the little virtual hand. You can click on that and I'll bring you on screen. And if not, just enjoy the session. Like Martin says, Friday is Dana Drum Day. I won't be banging the drums. I've wrote a large speech about Dana in the chat this morning. But yeah, just to let you know that this is the way we can keep on going, doing the sessions and everything that we have. We have lots of projects, lots of things in mind. And we'd really love to see this thrive. I mean, it's been over 10 years and over 3 years in these regular morning sittings. So, but it consumes a lot of resources and energy. And also, so that you're, I believe you're aware of this, but just to mention it, that everything that you donate this week until midnight today is also shared with James, because the teachers are the prime source of these mornings, and their wisdom, their time is precious too. So if you can donate anything, anything is, and everything is welcome. And if you can't donate, your presence is precious, and we cherish it. So please stay with us and enjoy the session. That'll be all from me. I wish you all a very lovely and peaceful weekend, and hope the weather smiles at you. And I'll see you soon. Thank you.
So, welcome, friends. Another precious day, precious practice together with this Sangha. It's really, this week about inclusivity and kindness and a sense of fluidity and flow in our experience, opening us up to inclusivity and kindness. And just the real beautiful sense of that within this community already, right? Enjoying the chat, enjoying the questions, the connections. So thank you. Yeah. So today, really the flow of the week, if we call it that, we've been looking at these three characteristics: fundamental nature of experience and reality as impermanent, as fundamentally a little bit unsatisfactory, and without being able to place a solid self that isn't changing within all of that. So really using that as the ground that opens us up to the possibility of more kindness, more inclusivity for ourselves and for the wider world. It's been a rainy night in London. I know some of you are here, and other areas there's been rain as well. And today I'm going to begin with a water-based analogy. Just also, because of the rain, my Wi-Fi connection, I think, is stable, but Wi-Fi is a kind of flow. It's a kind of receiving of signals and wavelengths. Also, just kind of acknowledging yesterday we were looking at including everything that was coming up in experience in a welcoming way, and not resisting what might appear as a distraction. So sometimes there are sounds in the background here. It's recycling day. And I could sense myself yesterday getting a little bit tense as I could hear the sounds from the street coming into the practice. Just there, and that reminder, that too is part of the flow of all things, unsatisfactory and impermanent. So just acknowledging that everything can be part of this flow, this practice. So, if you will allow me to, I'd love to talk you through an analogy or an extended metaphor. We're going to talk a lot about rivers, and you're welcome to close your eyes for this or to observe gently. And if I may, I'd like to transport you in your mind to the top of a beautiful mountain range. Maybe some of you are in the hills and the mountains. But you're cozy and you're safe, your vantage point in the mountain range. And at the top of the mountain range, you can see the sky clearly above, these little clouds. You can observe the land rolling away down through the landscapes, through valleys. And in the distance, you can observe the ocean. And all around you, there's water that has fallen as rain. There's great white blankets of snow that are gently melting. And as you're nestled in your cozy mountain space, the waters begin to converge into very small streams. Many, many, many separate streams and small flowing channels. And as they flow down the hillside, down the mountainside, they begin to converge. They begin to move into slightly larger, bigger streams. And these larger and bigger streams begin to converge into deeper rivers. And eventually converging into a great, vast, swirling, meandering river flowing down the valleys, through the landscapes, all the way towards the sea. And now this river, when it reaches the sea, begins to slow down. As it reaches the sea, there are many sandbars and small islands, and once again, the river appears to separate into other, what are called distributaries, a delta, many branching offshoots, the water flowing into the ocean. And the ocean is vast and complete and total. But there is also the sense that within the ocean, the water is rising gently in the heat, evaporating, becoming clouds and mist. And the clouds gently roll back over the landscape to the mountains above you and begin to fall as rain again. And so all of reality, all of experience is like this constant flow, and this constant cycle. And there might be moments where things feel very separate, like the small streams in the mountains, and we feel like very separate people. But there are also moments where things converge, where we sense a oneness or sangha, a sense of connection into something bigger and stronger, like a river. And the river is fluid. There are always obstacles. There are always rocky outcrops, big trees that the river flows around. But even though those stuck places exist, those solid places seem very fixed, the flow still continues. The flow is always there. And as the river approaches the ocean, sometimes things go more smoothly and slowly. Sometimes the flow appears much faster. And sometimes that flow seems to separate out again, like in the delta. But eventually, it's all heading to the ocean, returning to oneness. And even that oneness isn't the end. It continues through evaporation, through clouds, through rainfall. And so the flow is ever unfolding in ways we can and can't see. And so if this extended metaphor or analogy is useful as a way of seeing that things can feel separate, things can feel stuck, things can feel not in flow, but the flow is always there. The fluidity of experience is always unfolding, ever changing. And through our practice, more and more, we can really root into and ground into a sense of this ever-changing flow. Everything like a river, like a cycle of water. And so when we come into contact with these teachings on kindness or compassion, these heart qualities, many of you come into contact with what are called the Brahma Viharas, or the four immeasurables, the four abodes of the heart. And just if you're new or unfamiliar, the first one, metta, loving kindness or loving friendliness, and offering kindness or friendliness to others. The second, the Pali word karuna, is translated often as compassion, which is a sense of empathy and understanding for another's suffering, and empathy for someone else's suffering. And then quite beautifully, we have the third, mudita, sympathetic joy, which is so beautiful to me. Taking joy and happiness in somebody else's happiness or good fortune. And then finally, equanimity, upekkha. In the sense that equanimity is a balanced place which sees the whole picture. Sometimes it's given as a kind of detachment, but if it's detached, it's still very much engaged with the world. It's still very much engaged in a mindful way. Now, if you're wondering how you might cultivate these heart qualities of inclusivity and kindness in your life, in your practice, really practicing with the three characteristics, any one of them or all of them, really noticing, the impermanent nature of experience in your practice, in your life, or noticing how even the good things don't last and are ultimately not satisfying forever. The more we can gently experience this in the practice, the more automatically by itself a sense of opening inclusivity and opening compassion develops. Even if we're purely looking just at the three characteristics, they underpin, my belief, they underpin the whole practice of metta, the whole practice of loving kindness. But there are specific, quite detailed practices we can take to really cultivate these qualities of heart as well, as many of you know. And so today in the sit, I'm going to guide you to the sense of things flowing, the river, the cycle of water, sensing what's changing or moving in your awareness. There'll be a period of longer silence today, recycling dependent. It's good. Recycling is a good sound. Another kind of cycle, right? But I'm going to leave a little bit of time at the end to offer a short metta practice in the classic way, offering phrases to ourselves, to all beings, to help generate this quality of warmth in the heart. It can be felt as a very beautiful physical warmth in the chest. We can really drop into that ocean of kindness. The Brahma Viharas, sometimes translated as the four immeasurables, the sense that the ability for the heart to expand, to include, to be kind is immeasurable. It's endless. There is no limit. And so in our practice, we might always be meeting just the outer edge of what we can include, what we can accept, this too. But over time, that sphere can grow and grow and grow to include more and more with kindness. So I can't resist one more reading. I hope you humor me. Then we'll begin. This reading is about a river. The reading is attributed to the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu. This is written 2,400 years ago or so in the Tao Te Ching. I'll read it twice and then we sit. It's called We Are a River. Our life has not been an ascent up one side of a mountain and down the other. We did not reach a peak, only to decline and die. We have been as drops of water, born in the ocean and sprinkled on the earth in a gentle rain. We became a spring, and then a stream, and finally a river flowing deeper and stronger, nourishing all it touches as it nears its home once again. Don't accept the modern myths of aging. You are not declining. You are not fading away into uselessness. You are a sage, a river at its deepest and most nourishing. Sit by a riverbank sometime and watch attentively as the river tells you of your life. Our life has not been an ascent up one side of a mountain and down the other. We did not reach a peak only to decline and die. We have been as drops of water, born in the ocean and sprinkled on the earth in a gentle rain. We became a spring, and then a stream, and finally a river flowing deeper and stronger, nourishing all it touches as it nears its home once again. Don't accept the modern myths of aging. You are not declining. You are not fading away into uselessness. You are a sage, a river at its deepest and most nourishing. Sit by a riverbank sometime and watch attentively as the river tells you of your life. Settling like gentle rainfall on soft landscapes. Settling into the support of Mother Earth, the embrace of gravity. And that sense of releasing downwards slightly, body like rainfall. And so that if there are pockets of tension or gripping, perhaps they might melt like ice gently becoming water. And like sunlight reflecting on water, perhaps a sense of brightness, illumination throughout your being. And sensing what's alive for you, what awareness is gently holding. And where might there be a sense of flow, and changing sensations, sound. And is there any way where you might be resisting a little bit or not including something that's present? And perhaps the invitation to gently include this too, this too. As we sit together in silence now, It's the invitation to expand the sense that all things are flowing, fluid, sometimes more separate, sometimes more converged and connected, everything in flux. Whatever is alive in your awareness, this too, including. And the invitation now to include the sense of breath, the invitation for awareness to settle or to include your chest, area of the heart center. The heart nourished by each wave of breath. And you might invite or sense warmth or brightness like morning sunlight at the heart. And in one sense, separate, alone in your practice. And in another sense, connected across the globe, sitting together, our Sangha. And you might begin to include or invite a sense of all those practitioners that might be practicing now. So we converge in a river of heart, of kindness together. And if you wish to join me in offering phrases of metta to all of us, to the Sangha, I'll offer the phrases I use, but you're welcome to use your own. May we be safe. May we be happy. May we be healthy. And may we live with ease. May this Sangha be safe. May this Sangha be happy. May this Sangha be healthy. And may this Sangha live with ease. You may continue to offer metta from the warm brightness of your heart to all beings everywhere for these last few minutes. So, friends, it's gently flowing onwards into this time, this space, just inviting reflections or observations or questions. And any questions that we might not have time for, be sure to create a written response, and George and I will post it into Connect. There was a question 2 days ago around non-self, anatta, that I posted or created a longer reflection or commentary on that, which George posted into Sangha Connect. So please feel free to take a look. Yeah, I can see the poem seems to be well received by many of you, it seems. Yeah, and so this we will post the poem in Connect, I think, as George has said. Let's see, maybe I can let me see if I can even just post it into the chat and see if it will work. So this yeah, sort of not quite formatted, but you get the gist. This reading comes from the ancient Taoist text, the Tao Te Ching, one of the key texts within Taoist philosophy. And there's sort of quite a bit of creative license with this translation, but I believe meaning and language are also a form of flow. They should be allowed to evolve, open to new interpretations, open to new meanings. And I think how powerful that, these teachings from the time of Buddha, teachings from the time of Lao Tzu and other philosophers have been passed down and flowed down to us today in this miraculous moment, and that we can still connect to them. With new meanings, perhaps, with original traditional meanings, so we can really live lives which are more connected, more engaged, more inclusive, and hopefully just a bit happier, right? So I'm looking through the chat. Yeah, I see Jane's comment made me laugh. As I look at my wrinkles, this is such a comfort. Yeah, this sort of sense of, that kind of more conventional reality perspective of the self. It can be very easy to sense this kind of fading away or the changing of things that the poem talks about. When we pan the camera back from the perspective of the cosmos, it's all just part of a grander flow that, we're all connected within, and all parts of that flow are beautiful and essential and inescapable. So thank you, Doro. Glad you appreciate the poem. Great to see you here, Rosie. Nice to reconnect. It's great to have been with you this week. And yes, John commenting, be like water, my friend, Bruce Lee. Yeah, and Bruce Lee, so much of, those traditions come directly from Lao Tzu, directly from the Tao Te Ching. To paraphrase lines actually pretty much know them, the lines in the Tao Te Ching go a little bit like this. Best to be like water, which does not contend and flows to the lowly places. Best to be like water, which does not contend and flows to the lowly places. So water is very much prized for its humility. It's kind of always gently flowing downwards. It's kind of humble, flexible, changeable quality. Catherine saying, I'm actually in the mountains, sitting outside today and listening to the nearby river flow. Fabulous. How fortunate. It's great. The beauty is that the water flow is unstoppable. It goes its way and fulfills its destiny. Right. Yeah. So, Yasmin, great to see a comment from you as well. Does this translation come from a particular book that you can recommend? Again, we'll post this, but I will just there's many different ways to translate. I'm sure there's probably hundreds of translations of the Tao as a text. I know there's at least 48 to 50 of them. but this is the classic text, the Tao Te Ching. Sometimes they use the letter T rather than the D, the Tao, you might have come across. But there's a lot of similarity with the Buddhist teachings, and of course Taoism and Chan Buddhism and Zen Buddhism in some ways have converged like rivers slightly as well over the history. It's my understanding at this point that a lot of the real emphasis on nature, the cycles and patterns of nature, is really inherent and very part of Taoist philosophy. And my understanding is that over time, over the centuries, that somehow converged with different expressions and aspects of Buddhism, that, you know, Chan Buddhism became Zen Buddhism in Japan, where there's still, you know, classically quite a strong connection with nature. You get a lot of Zen haiku and Zen poems are really rooted within nature classically, the form. So, question from Eleanor. So firstly, thank you very much for this week's teaching. Glad you've enjoyed it. I'm very connected to the ideas of interconnectedness, and fluidity fits in with this. Dead leaf is already the bud, etc., etc. Right, beautiful. But I also feel in the background an inkling towards being in the flow of consciousness outside of myself. I won't go there. But the question is, are there any specific teachings that point towards this, are connected or connection to the river of consciousness? Are there any teachings, specific teachings that point towards this, our connection to the river of consciousness? I mean, I'd say ultimately, kind of, all Buddhist teaching is guiding us towards that, in the sense of that, you know, in some senses the universe is conscious, right? We can argue the entire universe, all of it is just consciousness. You know, in my study of texts and suttas, perhaps not in those specific words, but the sense that everything is flowing and changing together, including consciousness itself. In terms of very specific teachings that I can think of in the moment that could be useful or interesting for you, Eleanor, perhaps I will take this question offline, and I'll have a little deeper think in terms of what I've studied over the years, if anything arises that can really talk to this point. Yeah, if that's okay with you, Eleanor. Yeah, I'll come back with more specific answers, but the general answer is that, you know, text and written philosophy, oral philosophy is so beautiful and important and can really help guide us. But also the direct experience in your practice is the most profound and convincing teacher. You know, very often we can have this intellectual or kind of slightly more cerebral understanding of these philosophies and ideas. And that's one very important, valid way of understanding. There's also a very different kind of understanding that comes through just over and over and over, somewhat relentlessly experiencing that in your practice, in the sense of the direct experience of moment to moment unfolding. And then there can be those moments of, yes, everything is consciousness, everything is one awareness, of course it is. And then we contract back into that conventional reality, like, separate. So, yeah, thank you, Yasmin. I'm also echoing, thank you for all of your presence this week in these sessions, and particularly thank you to Georges for setting up, making it happen, to the team at Sangha Live. You know, and this, Georges has also alluded that dana itself is kind of a flow. It's a transmission of energy in one particular form that goes on to help facilitate energy in another kind of form, and reaching out to others who may benefit or learn from these practices and traditions, and that creates a ripple outwards into the world. Our practice is never in isolation. It ripples out into the world. It flows into everything else. And so cultivating kindness, inclusivity of self inevitably creates more of that in the world. Laura echoing, thank you for the question. And for me, trust in life corresponds to deep connection to the flow. Absolutely. Beautifully put, Laura. Yeah, I really resonate with that. Trust in life corresponds to the deep connection to the flow. Thank you, Jane, for your kind words, deep bows. And beautiful, Jan. Yeah, I hope that the poem, it's useful. You can read it in that context, a beautiful offering in that moment. Yeah. So, friends, I'm keen to kind of finish on the time today. It's maybe 1 or 2 more minutes if there are any last reflections or questions. And again, if there's anything which spills out, we'll include it in Sangha Connect. Martin saying, practice has been beneficial on my retreat up here in the mountains yesterday evening. I was visited by a young fox. I'm sort of sensing a slight rising of envy within my being of all of you in these beautiful, natural, conducive locations whilst I hear the recycling truck going past my window. But it's all the same flow. We have preferences, of course. But, so Jane has a beautiful comment, I think, which is in response to the question about consciousness. I find Jan O'Keefe's teachings helpful in this. Interesting. So I'm not so familiar with the depth of Jan's teachings, but that will inspire me to take a look as well. And yes, thank you, Patricia. Actually, I realized yesterday, happy coincidence. When I looked at the theme for this week, I didn't know, but there is a summit starting on the 1st of May with Martin, with Martin and Tim, called Deep Flow, Being and Doing, and it's all about flow. So I will hopefully also be participating, as a practitioner in that, which would be really nice, building on this this week. So, yeah, thank you, everybody. So, let's join palms, those of us who remain, and just wishing deepest wishes for that connection to fluidity and flow, to the flux of life, and for the wellspring, the rising up of compassion and kindness that it brings to all our Sangha around the world. Thank you, everybody, for a precious week together. Yeah. So, as always, I'm going to, with kindness, turn off my microphone and camera, and I really hope we get to meet and converge as rivers again soon, friends. Thank you and take care.